Deep within the embrace of an endless primeval forest, where sunlight struggles to pierce the dense canopy, stands a lone wooden cabin. It's weathered by countless seasons, its timber groaning under the weight of time and untold stories. An old man lives here, a hermit shrouded in as much mystery as the woods themselves. No one in the nearest distant town knows his name. Ask them how long he's been there, and you'll get a shrug, a shake of the head. Some say decades. Others, with a hushed reverence, whisper that he's been there forever, a fixture as permanent as the ancient trees. His days are a quiet ritual of survival, chopping wood, drawing water, and tending to a small, stubborn garden. But it's the nights that truly define his existence. As dusk bleeds into twilight, a thick white mist rolls in from the forest floor, swallowing the world in its ethereal blanket. And with the mist come the whispers. At first, they are faint, like the rustling of leaves in a phantom breeze. But as the moon climbs higher, the sounds grow bolder. They are voices, ethereal and indistinct, yet they seem to carry a single chilling syllable, his name, or what he believes is his name, called from the shifting shadows. Then come the footsteps. Soft at first, the crunch of a twig here, the scuff of a boot there. They circle the cabin, a restless, invisible patrol, the patrol of something, or someone. The most unnerving sound is the knocking. It's not the frantic banging of a lost traveler, but a gentle, almost hesitant tap-tapping that migrates along the cabin's outer walls. It's a sound that suggests patience, a quiet insistence. Every night, the old man, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs, will unlatch the heavy wooden door and peer out into the swirling fog. And every night, he finds nothing. Only the oppressive silence of the mist, the dripping trees, and the unnerving feeling of being watched. He is not a man to let these phenomena go undocumented. He keeps a journal, a tattered, leather-bound notebook filled with cramped, spidery handwriting. In it, he meticulously records every sound, every fleeting shadow he glimpses at the edge of his vision, every disembodied whisper that rides the night air. He is convinced that the forest is sentient, that it is alive and trying to communicate with him. He believes these nightly visitations are not random, but a message, a code he must decipher. The knocking was on the west wall tonight, he might write. 3 quick taps, a pause, then 2 more, like a heartbeat. Or, the voices sounded like a woman today, weeping. But as the days bleed into weeks, and weeks into an unknowable expanse of time, something strange begins to happen to the old man's own mind. His memories, once sharp and clear, are beginning to blur, to fray at the edges like the pages of his journal. He tries to recall the face of his wife, the sound of his child's laughter, the feeling of a world beyond this oppressive sea of green. But the images are faint, like old photographs left out in the sun. They flicker and fade, replaced by the ever-present reality of the whispering woods. He starts to wonder, are these voices truly from the forest? Or are they echoes from his past, ghosts of the people he once knew, the ones he left behind? A new, terrifying thought takes root in his mind. Perhaps the haunting is not external, but internal. Is he being visited by spirits, or by the specter of his own guilt? The line between reality and delusion begins to dissolve like sugar in water. What is real, and what is a product of his isolated, fractured mind? Is he a man haunted by ghosts, or a man haunted by himself? The cabin, his only sanctuary, starts to feel less like a shelter and more like a participant in this psychological torment. It seems to have a life of its own. The old wood groans and creaks in the night, and he can't help but feel it's the sound of the structure breathing around him. He catches glimpses of faces in the window panes, distorted reflections that are not his own, there for a second and then gone. They are fleeting, but their afterimage is burned into his psyche. One morning, he wakes up with a gasp, the cold morning air stinging his lungs. And there, on the rough wooden wall beside his cot, are words. They are written in charcoal, in his own distinct, looping handwriting. They say, "You can't forget." He stares at them, his hands trembling. He has no memory of writing them, none at all. The very walls of his prison are now colluding with his subconscious, scrawling messages he doesn't remember thinking, let alone writing. The cabin is no longer just a place. It's a living extension of his decaying sanity. He spends his days in a frantic search for an answer. He combs through his notebooks, looking for a pattern, a key. The entries become more erratic. The knocking is inside the walls now, one reads. Another, scrawled in a shaky hand, says, "I saw her face in the well. She was smiling." He's trapped in a feedback loop of fear and confusion, where every observation only deepens the mystery and his own self-doubt. Is the supernatural real, or has his mind simply snapped under the colossal weight of loneliness and regret? The forest watches, silent and impassive, offering no answers, only more questions that echo in the chilling night whispers. As we delve deeper into his crumbling world, we approach a final, shattering revelation. What if the truth is something far more terrible and strange than simple madness? Consider this possibility. The old man is not alive. Perhaps he has been dead for years, and this cabin, this forest, is not a physical place at all. It is a purgatory, a memory looping endlessly in the afterlife, a self-inflicted prison built from the bricks of his guilt. He is forced to relive his isolation, to be haunted by the echoes of a life he cannot quite remember, but can never fully escape. The knocking isn't a visitor. It's the sound of his own past, trying to break through the fog of his self-imposed amnesia. The voices aren't the forest. They are the people he wronged, their whispers a constant, eternal reminder. Or maybe there's an even more disturbing truth. Perhaps he is not, and never has been, alone in that cabin. What if the entity that whispers his name and knocks on the walls isn't outside at all? What if it's been inside with him the entire time? A silent roommate, a parasitic presence that feeds on his fear and sorrow. The footsteps circling the cabin were a distraction. The knocking on the walls, a clever misdirection. All this time, he's been looking out the door, peering into the fog, when the source of his terror was standing right behind him, reflected in his own terrified eyes. The whispers were never from the outside, because they were never meant for him to hear with his ears. They were spoken directly into his soul. The final horror is not that he is haunted, but that he is the host. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the woods. If you enjoyed this story and want to explore more mysteries of the mind and the unknown, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next descent into the shadows. Until next time, stay curious and be careful what you listen for in the silence. Tonight, we're diving deep into a fear that feels almost primal, a scenario that has haunted our collective subconscious for generations. The unexpected visitor in the dead of night. Picture this. It's 3 a.m. Rain is lashing against your window panes. The wind is howling a mournful tune, and the world outside is cloaked in an impenetrable darkness. You're safe, or so you think, tucked away in the familiar comfort of your home. Suddenly, a sound cuts through the storm, sharp and unnatural. The doorbell. It's a sound that doesn't belong in this hour. A digital chime that feels like an electric shock to your system. Every instinct screams that something is wrong. Who could possibly be at your door at 3 a.m.? It's not a friend in need. They would have called. It's not a delivery. They operate in daylight. Every logical explanation evaporates, leaving only a cold, heavy dread. This scenario taps into our most fundamental fears, the invasion of our sanctuary, the unknown, and the disruption of our carefully constructed reality. The home is our fortress, the one place in the world where we are supposed to be completely secure. The sound of that doorbell is a breach. It signals that the barrier between your safe world and the chaotic, unpredictable one outside has just been broken. Now, imagine yourself creeping out of bed. The floorboards are cold beneath your feet. Your heart is a frantic drum against your ribs. Every shadow in your hallway seems to stretch and twist into menacing shapes. The familiar becomes alien. The grandfather clock in the corner isn't just ticking. It's counting down to something terrible. You inch toward the front door, every muscle tensed. Do you look through the peephole? The thought alone sends a shiver down your spine. What if there's an eye looking back? This is the essence of psychological horror. It's not about a monster jumping out. It's about the monster that your own mind creates in the void of the unknown. The visitor at 3 a.m. is a blank canvas, and we, the unwilling artists, paint our deepest fears onto it. Is it a lost soul caught in the storm? Or is it something far more sinister, something that has chosen you, specifically for reasons you can't possibly comprehend? Let's explore the psychology behind this. The 3 a.m. hour itself is steeped in folklore and paranormal lore. It's often called the witching hour or the devil's hour, a time when the veil between our world and others is said to be at its thinnest. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, our culture has programmed us to associate this time with unease. Our bodies are at their lowest point in the circadian rhythm, making us more vulnerable, both physically and psychologically. Waking up suddenly at this time is disorienting, and our minds are more susceptible to fear and paranoia. So when that doorbell rings, it's not just a sound. It's a catalyst. It triggers a cascade of fight or flight responses. Your adrenaline spikes, your pupils dilate, and your mind races through every horror movie trope you've ever seen. The silhouette you might see through the frosted glass of the door isn't just a person. It's a symbol of every nameless dread you've ever had. It's the embodiment of the question, what's the worst that could happen? Think about the power dynamic. Inside, you are vulnerable, perhaps in your pajamas, caught completely off guard. Outside, the visitor is anonymous, cloaked by the darkness and the rain. They have all the power. They initiated this encounter. They chose the time. You are purely reactive, a prisoner in your own home, waiting for their next move. Will they ring again? Will they knock? Or will they simply wait, knowing that their silent presence is a form of torture in itself? This scenario forces us to confront our own courage, or lack thereof. What would you do? Would you call the police? That seems like the most rational choice. But what do you tell them? Someone rang my doorbell? It sounds almost foolish. Would you grab a weapon, a baseball bat, a heavy pan from the kitchen? The act of arming yourself confirms the danger, making it feel even more real. Or would you do nothing? Would you just stand there, frozen in the hallway, praying they go away? Your own home transformed into a cage? The mystery is the key. As long as the door remains closed, the person outside can be anything. The moment you open it, the horror might end, or it might just be beginning. It's this suspense, this unbearable tension of the unknown, that makes the 3 a.m. doorbell a masterpiece of horror. It plays on our fear of the unseen and our dread of what happens when the mundane order of our lives is shattered by a single, inexplicable event. It reminds us that no matter how secure we feel, a thin wooden door is all that separates us from the terrifying possibilities lurking in the night. What do you think? What would you do in this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. It's a chilling scenario to consider. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of our most shared fears. If you enjoy exploring the psychology of horror and suspense, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. Stay safe, and maybe, just maybe, disconnect your doorbell before you go to sleep tonight. See you next time. Rain has a way of washing away everything. Lies, evidence, even memories. But not this, not the red notebook. It felt cold to the touch, colder than the damp air seeping through the cracked window of the crime scene. Another body, another quiet apartment, another life extinguished like a candle in a draft. And beside the victim, placed with an almost ceremonial neatness, was the notebook. I'd seen 3 of them already, each one a carbon copy of the last. Red leather, slightly worn. Inside, a list of names written in a precise, elegant hand. The first victim's notebook had 1 name. The second had 2. The third, 3. It was a chain, a grotesque ledger of death, and the list grew with every body we found. Each notebook chronicled the previous victims, a gruesome roll call. But there was always one anomaly, the last page. It was always blank, waiting for the next name in the sequence. A promise of another death. Tonight was different. Tonight, the chain felt like it was finally closing in on something, or someone. My partner, a rookie named Miller, was green around the gills, trying not to look at the victim on the floor. He just pointed at the desk, same as the others, detective. The notebook. I picked it up, the leather slick against my gloved fingers. My heart hammered a rhythm against my ribs that matched the relentless drumming of the rain on the window pane. I didn't want to open it. Part of me, a deep, primal part, screamed to just leave it, to walk away and let this poison stay contained. But I couldn't. I was Elias Crane, a detective. This was my job, my curse. I flipped through the familiar pages. John Doe from the alleyway. Jane Smith from the downtown loft. Robert Paulson from the suburban house with the white picket fence. Their names stared back at me, silent accusations. Then I turned to the last page, the one that was supposed to be empty. It wasn't. My breath hitched. My blood ran cold, colder than the city night. Under the flickering fluorescent light of the apartment, a single name was written in dark, blood-red ink. The ink was still wet, gleaming as if freshly penned. It was my name, Elias Crane. Sleep hasn't been a friend for years. Just a stranger I pass in the halls of my own mind. But now it's an enemy. Every time I close my eyes, I see the notebook. I see my name. I wake up in a cold sweat, the phantom smell of wet ink and rain filling my small apartment. The station feels like a tomb. Everyone walks on eggshells around me. They've heard the rumors, the cursed case. The detective whose name appeared on the killer's list. Miller tries to be supportive, bringing me stale coffee and case files, but his eyes are full of pity. Or is it fear? I can't tell anymore. The lines are blurring. I've locked myself away with the evidence. 4 red notebooks lined up on my desk like crimson tombstones. I study the handwriting, searching for a tremor, a flaw, a human touch, but it's perfect. Too perfect. It's elegant, almost calligraphic. Whose hand could be so steady while orchestrating such chaos? A strange thing is happening. The names in the older notebooks, they're starting to fade. John Doe's name is now just a faint, ghostly imprint. Jane Smith's is barely legible. It's as if death isn't just taking the person. It's erasing their memory from the pages. All except one. On the last notebook, my name remains as vivid and wet as the moment I first saw it, a permanent stain. I'm losing time. Chunks of my day are just gone. I'll be driving to a lead, and suddenly I'm back in my office, hours later, with no memory of how I got there. The other day, I found a receipt in my pocket for a fountain pen and a bottle of crimson ink. I don't remember buying them. I don't own a fountain pen. The city outside my window is a smear of neon and shadow. The rain is my constant companion. I'm chasing a ghost, a phantom who knows my name, my fears, my every move. The killer could be anyone. A disgruntled ex-con I put away. A rival, or maybe it isn't a person at all. Maybe the notebook itself is the killer. A cursed object that writes the future. And once you read it, your fate is sealed. A silly, desperate thought born from exhaustion and whiskey. But the real fear, the one that coils in my gut, is something else entirely. I've spent my life chasing monsters in the dark. What if this time the monster is me? The breakthrough, if you can call it that, came from the lab. A partial fingerprint from the first notebook. Degraded, but they found a possible match in the system. An old sealed juvenile record. My own. I stared at the report, the world tilting on its axis. It had to be a mistake. A clerical error. Contamination. But then I remembered something. A forgotten fragment from my childhood. A red notebook I kept, where I'd write down the names of people who were mean to me. Just a kid's fantasy. Harmless. I hadn't thought about it in 30 years. I went back to the evidence room. I held the fourth notebook, the one with my name in it. My hand was shaking so badly, I could barely hold it steady. I took a deep breath and looked at the handwriting. Really looked at it. Not as a detective looking for a killer, but as a man looking in a mirror. I saw the familiar loop of the E, the sharp, angular cut of the C, the way the air slightly curled at the end. It wasn't just familiar. It was mine. The handwriting was mine. The realization hit me not like a thunderclap, but like a slow, creeping flood, drowning everything. The lost time, the strange purchases, the feeling of being watched, followed by my own shadow. I was the one planting the notebooks. I was the killer. I just didn't remember. Every murder, every victim, I was sleepwalking through my own horror story. I was writing a script and then living it out, a grim performance for an audience of one. The final act had to be played out. I took the notebook from the office, my mind strangely calm. The rain had stopped. The city was quiet, holding its breath. I went down to the river, the water black and slick under the moonlight. In my hand, I held a box of matches. This had to end. This madness, this cycle. I lit a match, the flame sputtering to life, casting a demonic glow on my face. I held it to the corner of the red notebook. The leather sizzled, then caught. The pages began to curl and blacken, the names vanishing into smoke and ash. I watched it burn, a sense of relief washing over me. It was over. I was free. But as the last page turned to embers, a voice whispered from the flames. It was a cold, familiar voice. My voice. It said, "You wrote this long ago, and you will write it again." The fire died, leaving only silence and the chilling truth that some stories, once written, can never be erased. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the darkness. If you enjoy stories that get under your skin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss what is coming next. Stay safe and check your notebooks. The rent was a steal, almost too good to be true for a place this close to the city center. The landlord, a stout man with a wheezing laugh, handed me the keys. "Just one thing," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Your neighbor, Mr. Abernathy in 3B, he's a bit eccentric. Keeps to himself mostly. Just don't mind the noise. Harmless, he'd called him. Unstable. I figured it meant late-night music or the occasional loud argument. I could handle that. My old place was next to a fraternity house. I was a veteran of noise. For the first few days, it was quiet, eerily quiet. The building had this scent of old paper and dust, and the hallways seemed to swallow sound. At night, the fluorescent lights in the corridor would flicker, casting long, dancing shadows that played tricks on my eyes. Then, I started to hear it. A low, rhythmic murmuring from the other side of my bedroom wall. It was Mr. Abernathy. At first, it was just a comforting, if strange, presence. A reminder that I wasn't completely alone in this old, creaking building. I'd lie in bed, listening to his one-sided conversations. He'd talk about the weather, about birds he'd seen from his window, about the taste of lukewarm tea. It was odd, sure, but the landlord was right. Harmless. But one night, the tone shifted. The murmuring became more urgent, more directed. I pressed my ear against the cold plaster, straining to hear. He wasn't just talking to himself anymore. He was talking about me. "She's new," the voice rasped, so close it felt like he was in the room with me. "She doesn't know yet. She doesn't hear them." My blood ran cold. I pulled away from the wall, my heart hammering against my ribs. It had to be a coincidence. He must have heard me moving around. That was it. But the next day, as I was leaving for work, I found a small, polished river stone placed perfectly in the center of my doormat. I looked at the door to 3B. It was closed, silent. I kicked the stone aside and hurried down the stairs, trying to shake the feeling of being watched. The conversations through the wall grew more specific. He started calling me by my name. "Anna," the voice would whisper late at night. "Anna, can you hear them scratching? They're getting restless." I started sleeping with headphones on, blasting music to drown him out. But sometimes, in the brief silence between songs, I'd hear it. A faint scratching sound. Like rats, big rats. I complained to the landlord. He just sighed, polishing his glasses. "Mr. Abernathy has his stories, Anna. Lived here for 20 years. The building is old. You're just hearing the pipes." He gave me that same hollow smile. "He's harmless." But how did he know my name? I never told the landlord my first name, only my last on the lease agreement. Paranoia began to creep in, a slow, cold vine wrapping around my thoughts. I started to doubt everything. Was I leaving my mail out? Did I talk too loudly on the phone? One night, I was jolted awake. Not by a voice, but by a sound that made every muscle in my body seize. Knock, knock. It wasn't at my door. It wasn't at my window. The sound was coming from inside my wall. Slow, deliberate, and right behind my headboard. I froze, listening. The knocking stopped. And then, Abernathy's voice, not a whisper this time, but a panicked, choked sob. "They're in there with you now. Don't let them know you can hear me." I scrambled out of bed, fumbling for the light switch. The bare bulb flooded the room with a harsh, sterile light. I was alone. Of course, I was alone. But the wall felt different. It seemed to hum with a strange energy. I spent the rest of the night huddled in a chair in my living room, watching the bedroom door, as if a monster might burst through it. The next morning, driven by a mixture of terror and morbid curiosity, I went next door. I had to see him. I had to know what was real. I knocked on the door of 3B. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. "Mr. Abernathy?" "It's Anna from next door." Silence. I tried the handle. It was unlocked. My hand trembled as I pushed the door open. A wave of musty, stale air hit me. The apartment was empty. Completely, utterly empty. No furniture, no boxes, just dust motes dancing in the slivers of light coming through the grimy windows. The floor was covered in a thick layer of undisturbed dust. No one had lived here for a very, very long time. I backed away slowly, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. I practically ran to the landlord's office on the ground floor. I found him watering a dying fern. 3B, I gasped, out of breath. "It's empty. Abernathy isn't there." The landlord looked at me, his expression unreadable. He put down his watering can. "Abernathy?" "Son, Mr. Abernathy passed away 5 years ago, in that very apartment. We've kept it vacant ever since. Out of respect, my vision tunneled. The floor felt like it was tilting beneath me. "No," I whispered. "No, I hear him. Every night. He talks to me." The landlord took a step closer, his voice soft, gentle, the way you'd speak to a frightened animal. "The walls are thin, Anna, and this old building makes a lot of strange noises. Maybe you're just a little stressed from the move." I stumbled back to my apartment, my own keys feeling foreign in my hand. He thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. Maybe the loneliness and the stress had finally cracked something in my mind. Maybe I had imagined it all. The voice, the knocking, the man named Abernathy. I needed to believe that. It was the only sane explanation. That night, I sat in the dark, my back against the far wall of the living room, as far from the bedroom as I could get. The silence in the apartment was absolute. No murmurs, no scratching, just the sound of my own ragged breathing. Relief, cool and sweet, washed over me. It was over. It was all in my head. And then I heard it, a whisper. It wasn't coming from the wall. It was coming from right behind me. I told you they were in there with you. Thank you for watching. If this story sent a chill down your spine, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe and always check your walls. The sunset bleeds across the sky, painting the clouds in shades of orange and deep purple. It would be beautiful if my car wasn't dead on the side of a road that probably hasn't seen another vehicle all day. No signal, of course, just my luck. But then I see it, a thin wisp of smoke curling up from a valley hidden just beyond the tree line. A sign of life, hope. The path is more of a suggestion than a trail, winding down through ancient pines that seem to swallow the last of the daylight. The air grows cold, thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something old. The village appears suddenly, like a ghost materializing from the mist. Crooked wooden houses huddle together, their roofs sagging under the weight of time. Dim lanterns cast a sickly yellow glow on the muddy ground. It's a place that time forgot, a place that doesn't exist on any map. I checked. They emerge from the shadows, the villagers. One by one, they're polite, almost unnervingly so. A woman offers me a bowl of thin, lukewarm soup. A man gestures towards a vacant cabin where I can spend the night. They all smile, but it's the same smile on every face. A practiced, hollow curve of the lips that doesn't reach their eyes. They're all dressed in similar drab, homespun clothes, as if wearing a uniform for a life I can't begin to understand. Is there a phone I could use? I ask, my voice sounding loud in the oppressive silence. Or maybe a landline. I just need to call for a tow. The man who pointed me to the cabin just keeps smiling that empty smile. We have no need for such things here, he says, his voice flat. No one calls from here. No one calls to here. A chill, colder than the mountain air, crawls down my spine. Something is deeply wrong. As true night falls, a heavy, unnatural quiet descends upon the village. It's only then that I realize what's missing. There are no dogs barking, no cats slinking through the alleys, not even the chirping of crickets. There are no animals, anywhere. And then I notice something else. The children. Where are the children? A place like this, so isolated, should be teeming with them. But the lanes are empty, the small houses silent. It feels like a town holding its breath, waiting for something. I retreat to the cabin they offered me. It's sparse, just a bed, a table, and a single lantern. The flame sputters, casting long dancing shadows that twist into unsettling shapes. I try to shake off the feeling of being watched, but it clings to me like the fog outside. I catch my reflection in the dark, grimy window pane, my face pale and strained. And behind my reflection, I see them. Villagers standing silently in the mist, their faces turned towards my cabin, just watching. Sleep is impossible. Every creak of the old wood, every rustle of the wind sounds like a footstep. I keep thinking about their eyes. When I spoke to them, when the lantern light caught their faces just right, I saw nothing. No spark, no life, no reflection. Just dark, empty pools. It's like looking into a well that has no bottom. What is this place? A forgotten community? A cult? The questions spiral in my mind, each one more terrifying than the last. They said no one calls from here. Does that also mean no one asterisk leaves asterisk? The thought is a jolt of pure ice in my veins. The politeness, the smiles. It's all a mask. A carefully constructed facade to hide a monstrous truth. Dawn can't come soon enough. But as the first sliver of gray light filters through the trees, a new sound breaks the silence. It's not the birdsong I was desperately hoping for. It's a low, rhythmic chant. It's coming from the center of the village. All of them are gathering. The polite smiles are gone, replaced by expressions of solemn, focused purpose. They are preparing for something. A ritual. I have to get out. I can't stay for whatever is about to happen. I grab my bag, my useless car keys clinking in my pocket, and slip out the back of the cabin. I move through the dense trees, my heart hammering against my ribs. The chanting grows louder, a hypnotic, chilling hum that seems to vibrate through the very ground. I glance back one last time. In the center of the village square, they've erected something, a tall wooden effigy, crudely carved. And at its base, they're laying out offerings. Not food, not flowers. They are laying out clothes, small clothes, children's clothes. My blood runs cold. The missing children, the silence, the soulless eyes. It all clicks into place with a horrifying certainty. This village isn't just isolated, it's hungry. It's a trap, and I walked right into it. The smiling hosts, the welcome shelter. It was all part of the hunt. I don't look back again. I run. I scramble up the slick, muddy path, branches tearing at my clothes, the sound of the chanting chasing me. I don't know if they've seen me, if they're coming after me. All I know is that the sun is rising, and I need to be somewhere, anywhere, that its light can actually touch. The story of this strange village will die with me, or it will be a warning I carry for the rest of my life. A story of a place not on any map, a place that survives on secrets and feeds on the lost. A place you should pray you never, ever find. Thanks so much for sticking with me through this chilling tale. If you love stories that get under your skin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss what is coming next. Let me know in the comments what you think the village ritual was for. Until next time, stay safe and be careful on those lonely roads.